Welcome to AGK's Vinyl Life. I'm your host, Anthony K. And on this installment, I'm going to be doing the second volume of my AGK's 7-minute record reviews. That's right, AGK's 7-minute record reviews, where I review an album track by track, talk about each song on the album, and then in the end, give an overall opinion of the album. And I try to do that in 7 minutes. The first one I did was a few weeks ago, and I didn't quite hit the 7-minute mark. I think I was about 8 minutes in my review, but let's just say that it's 7 minutes approximately, because I realized after the first video that to try to sum up an album, especially if it has a lot of tracks on it, in 7 minutes is a challenge. And it took me quite a few tries of my previous video to get that one in even at 8 minutes. So I'm gonna just say we're gonna shoot for 7 minutes. I got a stopwatch here, which I'm gonna record and see how well I do. See if I can do it in 7 minutes, just sort of as a challenge. But it might go over 7 minutes. The important thing is to talk about each song and to discuss the album and give you guys a real good idea of how I feel about this album. So on this number 2 episode of AGK's 7-minute record reviews, I've chosen a new album that came out this summer by this band here. They are called the Psychedelic Furs. Many of you will know who the Psychedelic Furs are, but if you don't, this is an album, this particular album, this is not the album I'm going to be reviewing. You'll see that one in a second. But the Psychedelic Furs, definitely this album here, Mirror Moves, was, I would put as one of my top 10 albums of the 80s. This one came out in 82 or 83, I believe. Mirror Moves had big hit singles on it, The Ghost in You and Heaven, classic 80s songs by Psychedelic Furs. Overall, this album, like I said, is one of my favorite albums of the entire 1980s period for sure. But Psychedelic Furs have not always been, they're not like one of my big favorite bands. I don't like all of Psychedelic Furs material and all their albums, but this one definitely was a standout. So for those of you who didn't know Psychedelic Furs, they did this album here, Mirror Moves, and another very popular album of theirs was Midnight to Midnight. Psychedelic Furs have released a total of 8 albums to date. The first 7 albums were recorded between 1980 and 1991. And I will be talking about their 8th album and new album, Made of Rain, which was released this past August, so only a month and a bit ago. This album came out, Made of Rain, and this is the first album period by Psychedelic Furs in 29 years. That's right, 29 years. Now, Psychedelic Furs were made of Richard Butler, Tim Butler, and John Ashton. They were a trio. The main trio of the band was Richard Butler on vocals, Tim Butler on bass, and John Ashton on guitars. And in every album that the Psychedelic Furs made, they also hired drummers, saxophone. Saxophone played a very big part in Psychedelic Furs music. They also had a saxist. So they had saxophone, keyboards, and drums, but every album that Psychedelic Furs made pretty much had different sax players, different drummers, different keyboardists through most of those 7 albums that they released before that. They have returned after 29 years to make Made of Rain, like I said, released this past August. And it is Richard Butler on vocals, Tim Butler on bass guitar, as before. John Ashton is not with them anymore, so it's just the 2 of the 3. And once again, they've brought in a guitarist, a saxophonist, a keyboardist, and a drum and percussionist to do this album. I really love the way this album is mixed. There's so many sounds that come in and out from background to foreground, and they seem to come out from background to foreground throughout the album at just the right time. Each song, there's instruments. The sax might be in the background in the song, and then it comes foreground for a little solo and goes back again. There's intricate layers in every song. Every song is layered with wonderful sounds, keyboard sounds, little sound effects, special effects, crickets. In one song there's crickets, which I'll discuss, but there's so many layers. Every song has so many layers of music to it. I was astounded. As people know, I'm a big music fan. I listen to a lot of new music, and this is one album and probably the first album in years and years for me that I cannot just have it playing in the background. This album, every time I put it on, I have to stop and listen to. So it takes quite a special album for me to actually drop everything I'm doing and listen to the music. And this album is definitely worthy of that. I can see why it took them 29 years to make this album. 29 years since their last studio album, and it was worth the wait because the production value on this album is through the roof. The mixing is so wonderfully done. Keyboards, different types of saxes, different types of percussion. You've got twangy guitar, you've got wah-wah guitar, you've got fuzz guitar, you got distortion guitar, you got slide guitar, you got thumping bass sounds and twangy bass sounds. There are just so many sounds in all of the songs on this album. I figured I'd just wrap that part of it all up in a nutshell before I do my review here. But yeah, production-wise, mixing-wise, it's wonderfully mixed. The instruments and sounds you need to come to the foreground in the song do so in the right time, and then drop to the back. Vocals will come out farther in the front and then move to the back. It's just wonderfully mixed. So let's get on now with the 7-minute record review, track by track. The Psychedelic Furs 2020 release, Made of Rain, with the original two members, Richard and Tim Butler, and a wonderful host of new musicians on it. It still retains that classic Psychedelic Furs sound, but it's definitely been updated to the sound of 2020. And let's get on with the actual review. That was my overview. Let's get on with the review. We're going to start the stopwatch and talk about the songs. So, the first song on the album, I just got the song list up here just so I don't forget from being on camera. Sometimes you just brain freeze. First song is the Boy Who Invented Rock and Roll. It is a fabulous 3.5 minute album opener. And as I've said before, I think every great album has to have a wonderful song that kicks off the album, sets the mood for the album, and a fantastic closing song that ends the album and makes you feel like you've had a complete listening experience. And The Boy Who Invented Rock and Roll is just that, classic Psychedelic Furs. It's a punchy, rocky, probably the hardest edged song on the album. The lyric itself, The Boy Who Invented Rock and Roll kind of tells everything you want to know about what that song is about. It kicks off the album with a good thumping start. From there, we go to Don't Believe, which was the lead-off single from this album. And when I first, knew the album was coming out way back in May, June-ish, and I'd seen the first music video which was Don't Believe. I believe it was a lyric video, if I remember right. I really liked the song, and it was a great single, but as I've now been listening to this album over and over and over, Don't Believe is kind of becoming my least favorite song on the album. It's very standard. It's a punchy rhythm song. Great lyric in it, but I find maybe just got a little tired of it too quickly. Maybe it was because the first song I heard, and after experiencing the wonderful music on the rest of this album, I Don't Believe, I think, is kind of, for me, maybe the weakest song on the album. But it's a great song, don't get me wrong. It was a single. They've released 4 singles from this album, and 2 of them I agree with, and 2 of them I don't agree that they should have released as singles, because there's just so many other incredible songs on this album that I would have probably chosen a different 2 singles. But 2 of the singles I would have kept. Don't Believe, I probably wouldn't have, if I had the choice, would not have made it a single. Track number 3 is the first real powerful, really great song on the album. You'll Be Mine is the second single from the album, and it's definitely single material, and it harkens back to Love My Way. For those of you who Psychedelic Furs fans that know the song Love My Way, she's a da-na. Yeah, it cycles back to that classic Psychedelic Furs ballady sound, and it's called You'll Be Mine. Great song, highly recommend, and that's of the first 3 songs, definitely the best. But then we get to song number 4, and this is where the album, as far as I'm concerned, completely takes off. Don't get me wrong, I love You'll Be Mine. When song number 4 kicks in, it just takes the whole album in a wonderful direction and a wonderful flow. The album flows from beginning to end great. I think the sequencing of the songs, the order of the songs is fantastic. But Wrong Train really just is, it envelops you. The thing I love about this album is it completely envelops you. Like I said, it makes you stop and listen to it, because there is so many sounds in this album that you have to like turn it up. People, when you hear this album, crank it up or put it in a good pair of headphones, crank it up and actually stop and listen to this album, because there are so many sounds in every song to listen to that it's just it's a buffet for the ears of sounds. But Wrong Train, definitely a fantastic song, and the lyric is, it's, we've all been there. We've all gotten on the wrong train and got off at the wrong town. It talks about, life and how you sometimes feel like you took the wrong train and had, you had a bad day. The lyric in the song is, he took a wrong train, he got off at the wrong town, he crashed his car, his wife's cheating on him. It's one of those, we've all been there, took the wrong train. It's got a wonderful slide guitar in it, a really good beat and flow to it. Wrong Train, one of my favorites, an absolutely fantastic song. Lyrically, beginning to end, this album is beautifully, the lyrics in this album, Richard Butler, Tim Butler, these guys did an incredible job writing the songs. I think lyrically, this is their strongest album they've made. It's just got wonderful lyrics. So, and then we get into song number 5 after Wrong Train, which leads into This'll Never Be Like Love, which I think should have been a single. It's the second longest song of the two long songs on the album. This song goes 5 minutes and 10 seconds. And This Will Never Be Love is an absolutely wonderful ballad that puts tears in my eyes. I know that sounds crazy, but I'm a very sensitive person to music. And I find there's certain melodies, you hear it a lot in movie themes, those movie themes that just tug on your heartstrings and make little tears kind of well up in your eyes and just fill you full of emotion. This album has so many moments that fills me full of emotion and actually just makes me kind of stop and get a little sort of rush of emotion. This album, every time I listen to it, there's certain songs in this album that give me that rush of emotion. And This'll Never Be Like Love is one of those. An absolutely gorgeous song with a beautiful sax solo in the middle, and then in the last minute and so of the song, it leads out with a wonderful guitar solo and sax solo to finish the song for like about a minute and a half at the end of the song. Gorgeous song, This'll Never Be Like Love, which then leads into yet another ballad called Ash Wednesday, which is absolutely wonderful. There's so many intricate sounds in it. It opens up with crickets. You hear these little crickets chirping at the beginning, and the song builds and builds. It's the longest song on the album, clocking in at 5 minutes and 37 seconds. And the song builds and builds, a beautiful song that towards the end almost brings in like a choir. There's almost like a choir singing at the end of the song, and it's absolutely spectacular. It's too bad on YouTube we couldn't just play lots of sound samples of each thing, because I would play samples of the songs, but then of course we all get the copyright strikes and all the rest of it. But Ash Wednesday, once again, finishes with this gorgeous, almost like a choir singing in the end. A real treat. And that finishes off the first half of the album. Then comes probably the most unusual song on the album, and it's called Come All Ye Faithful. And when I first heard, and which is the third single from the album, and when I first heard Come All Ye Faithful, I was not a fan of the song. I found it very strange. It's definitely the most unusual song on the entire album. A very strange song. But as I listened to it, I started to, hear the wonderful sounds that were in the song and hear things in the song that on the first couple listened just kind of passed me by, and realized that it had a really great bass line and drum beat. It's hard to describe the song. I will post links in the comments below to the 4 singles from the album: Don't Believe, You'll Be Mine, Come All Ye Faithful, and No One. There will be links to the 4 music videos from it, so you can at least see those. I do believe the entire album is available to listen to on the Psychedelic Furs YouTube. But Come All Ye Faithful was a song that I wasn't quite sure what to make of it. But as time has gone on, I've grown to like the song because, like I said, it's got a wonderful bass line, wonderful beat to it. But then it's got these really almost Middle Eastern sax sounds and almost like fusion jazz sax that come in and out from the back to the foreground, from the back to the foreground. These really just completely out of left field sax solos and sax sounds that putter through the song. And at one point, the song just completely stops and restarts, and you just have the vocalist's vocals and a drum beat, and then the song, of course, starts again and builds to the end. Come all ye faithful. Then on to song number 8, which is No One, the 4th single from the album. Wonderful song. Once again, it harks it back to classic Psychedelic Furs, Love My Way kind of songs. Heaven, well, not really Heaven, Love My Way, Ghost in You kind of sound. No One, wonderful single. Wonderful sounds in it. Great guitar work. There's really wonderful guitar work in all of these songs, and sax work. They really stand out, and all the songs, like I said, have wonderful layers of little keyboard sounds, keyboards and little sound effects and synthesizer effects that just ripple through all the songs. No One, another wonderful song. Then we get to Tiny Hands, and it is another one of those songs that just grabs me, and it's like wrapping a warm blanket around yourself. It just makes you feel so cozy and comfy. It's just a wonderful song. Tiny Hands. It's almost like a lullaby. It opens with a piano that's reminiscent of like a harpsichord, of like, the old King Henry VIII times harpsichord sort of sounding, music, and a keyboard. But at the same time, it's got this wonderful wah-wah guitar that strums along against this kind of harpsichordy sounding keyboard. And it's a wonderful effect between the two instruments. And then, of course, the lyrics in Tiny Hands, they're just, I don't know, they just touch my heart. And it's one of those songs that you can't help but start singing along to. The lyrics become very friendly and very memorable very quickly, and you can't help but just want to sing along to this beautiful little lullaby called Tiny Hands. Then we get into track number 10, Hide the Medicine. Very straight up lyric in that. Hide the medicine from your kids, meaning let's get the drugs away from our kids. Hide the Medicine, wonderful song. Once again, all the songs from about Wrong Train on have this wonderful, not slow, not fast, but just this wonderful flow, easygoing flow and beat about them all the way through the album. Hide Your Medicine, the lyric definitely strongly about hiding the medicine from the kids. That's followed by Turn Your Back on Me, another real slow kind of ballad, once again, that tugs on your heartstrings. And then the final song on the album, Stars, is an absolutely fantastic closer. I've said before, you got to have any great album's got to have a great closer, and Stars definitely has a great closer, and it's another one that you want to sing along to. It wraps it, like I said, once again, you feel like when you're listening to this song and many songs of this album, it's like wrapping a little blanket around yourself and feeling all cozy and warm and fuzzy inside. But that's the effect this album has on me. It really gives me good feelings throughout the album, makes me want to sing along, makes me want to tear up. And as I said, Stars, and all the lyrics are on this album here. It's this big mess here is all the lyrics to the song. And to give you an example, I'm gonna read you the lyrics from Stars, which closes the album. The stars are out, they spark and flash. A snake is sliding through the grass. Underneath, the moon is shining. Through the trees, the starlings on the wires leave while we sleep. These are the days that we will all remember. These are the days that we will all remember, which is such a wonderful lyric and the way to close the album. These are the days that we'll all remember. So just a wonderful lyric. And then the song is, about 4 minutes long. The lyric is done about halfway through the song. And then the second half of the song just goes into this crescendoing and building synthesizer freak out of wonderful synthesizer sounds and electronic sounds that build and build and build and build for like the last 2 minutes of the song instrumentally. and then the song just cuts, and that's the end of the album. And I love when artists do something like that at the end of their album. It just cuts, and that's the end of the album, and that is fantastic. And how did I do with the review? Probably terrible, because I had an interruption in the middle. It's showing me 14 minutes on the clock, but I had the phone ringing. I had to recut and everything, so that was a mess. I'm sure it probably was around 10 minutes, my review, but hey, what the heck? It's 7 minutes plus review. But unfortunately, I had a phone call in the middle of this review that really threw my flow off, and I've had to cut out all of that, so I don't know what the time was on this review. But that's Made of Rain, Psychedelic Furs, their latest work, 29 years in the making, and well worth the making. And with that, it's time to give my opinion, give my rating, give my AGKs. How many AGKs do I give this album? I am going to give this album a very, very strong 9.5 stars out of 10. That's right. I'm giving this album 9.5 AGKs out of 10. This is a near perfect album as far as I'm concerned. I was tossing whether do I give this album a 10 out of 10 or a 9.5. It's really hard to have a perfect album, I think, for anybody, but this is as close to perfect as you can get. I think this is Psychedelic's best album, Psychedelic Furs' best album they ever made, hands down. Fantastic. 9.5 AGKs. I'm going to stick with that. A very strong 9.5 AGKs out of 10. Buy it, people. Listen to it. Stop what you're doing. Let all the wonderful sounds envelop you. Let this album wrap you up in its little warm blanket of joy and make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. And that is my AGK's 7-minute record review, which was probably 10 or more minutes. Record review of the Psychedelic Furs, Made of Rain. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, don't forget to please like and subscribe to my channel. Turn the notification bell on and visit me on Instagram at AGK_Lifetime of Vinyl, where I try to post a spin of the day every day. I've taken a little hiatus from posting spin of the days. I'm going to be getting back to them very soon now, posting spin of the days. But visit me there. Watch for me next week as I go back to one of my regular episodes of videos. But I hope you enjoyed my second AGK 7-minute record review. And that's it. That's all, everybody. And as I always say, rock and roll.